Hello, welcome to Leisrealtalk. Stories of reincarnation are not unusual, but what if I tell you there's a tale about a man believed to be the reincarnation of the founding father of modern China, and before he passed away, he revealed a secret that still matters today. He prophesied the man destined to bring down the Chinese communist regime. In the small village of Sizhang in Nanyang, Henan province, a baby boy was born into the Zhang family in the 1950s. They named him Simu. But something about this child was different from the very beginning. At 2 years old, while most children are babbling or running around, little Simu still couldn't walk, and he hadn't spoken a single word. His parents grew worried. Then one day, a villager dropped by for a visit. As the adults chatted, little Simu crawled toward the doorway, picked up a piece of tile, and began scratching on the ground. To everyone's shock, he wrote the Chinese character for door. He crawled outside, stopped by a water jar, and wrote jar. And he then moved to a tree and wrote tree. The handwriting was neat and in traditional Chinese characters. His parents were illiterate. No one had ever taught him how to write. How could a 2-year-old who had never set foot in school know how to write? Word spread quickly. The Zhang family had a child prodigy. By the age of 4 or 5, Simu finally learned to walk. That's when his parents discovered that the boy was completely deaf and mute. With no money for medical care or special schooling, he stayed home in the village. But Simu was far from ordinary. Every day he roamed freely through the village, chalk or tile in hand, scribbling characters wherever he went. Villagers watched in awe as he wrote beautifully with both hands. One day they noticed him drawing odd symbols in the dirt. Nobody recognized them until a middle school student came by. To everyone's astonishment, the symbols were English words, strung together into a short essay. This deaf and mute boy had no teacher, no training, yet he somehow knew both Chinese and English. The villagers began to treat him like a man of wisdom. They sought his help with practical matters, like calculating the leap months in the lunar calendar to plan their planting. Simu would run his fingers through quick calculations and confidently give them the leap months for the next 100 years. He also predicted the weather with uncanny accuracy, and the villagers were grateful. But then came an incident that unsettled everyone. When Simu was in his teens, he went to a yard in a neighboring village and wrote a chilling message. Villager Huang will die on such and such a date. Not long after, Huang did die, exactly on that day. Fear swept through the community. Some accused Simu of cursing the man. His terrified father beat him up and warned him never to make predictions about life and death again. Still, his reputation spread across Nanyang. People traveled from miles away to see him. Yet when they finally met him, they were often baffled. At first glance, he just looked like a simpleton, grinning foolishly. What he loved most was writing in his courtyard for visitors. With chalk in hand, he would often write this text. For 40 years, I have devoted myself to the cause of the national revolution, seeking freedom and equality for China. The piece always ended with these words. I leave all my books, clothes, and residence to my wife, Song Qingling, as a keepsake. My children are grown and can support themselves. I hope they will cherish themselves and continue my work. This is my last wish. It was then signed March 11th, Sun Wen. Sun Wen is the name of Dr. Sun Yat-sen, the founding father of the Republic of China. The text Simu wrote was his will written in 1925. In the pre-internet era, almost no one could recite it word for word. Yet here it was, reproduced flawlessly by a deaf-mute villager who had never been to school. He mixed simplified and traditional characters, but never once made a mistake. But soon, turbulent years descended. Famine struck in the early 1960s. Then came the Cultural Revolution. Even tiny Sizhang village wasn't spared. Many starved, others were humiliated in public struggle sessions. Yet Simu, because of his disabilities, was overlooked. Having helped countless villagers with his predictions and wisdom, no one targeted him. He stopped making public predictions and instead took up a humble job, becoming the village's unofficial postman. For more than a decade, he delivered letters and newspapers every single day. Then, in early 1976, he suddenly gave it up and began wandering again, drifting between towns and villages, sometimes disappearing for days at a time. He carried chalk everywhere, and in marketplaces or temple courtyards, he would scrawl a single question on the ground. Why is there a leap 8th month this year? To most people, it looked like a riddle, but those who knew him grew uneasy. Was he predicting something? A few months later, Mao Zedong died. Not long after, a chalk poem appeared on the village's open ground. The great evil gone, the people rejoice. All rivers run free at last. Though the night is long, the golden rooster crows to light the sky for my China. The villagers recognized Simu's handwriting instantly. Out of fear for his safety, they erased it at once. To openly celebrate Mao's death could have been a death sentence. After the Cultural Revolution, China reinstated school entrance exams. Then one day, a group of stern-looking officials showed up at the Zhang household. They introduced themselves as staff from the Nanyang City Education Bureau. The reason? That year's high school entrance exam questions had somehow leaked. It turned out that a year earlier, Simu had casually told a few kids exactly what the Chinese essay topic would be. The kids aced the test and in their excitement spread the story. At first, no one believed them. But the next year, Simu predicted the essay topic again. And again, the students excelled. This time, the Education Bureau couldn't ignore it. But when the officials arrived and found their supposed culprit was a deaf-mute villager with a vacant grin, they were dumbfounded. By now, Simu's fame had spread far beyond Nanyang. Reporters came sniffing around. His courtyard was once again filled with visitors. And just as he had done since childhood, he would often pick up chalk and with complete accuracy copy out the will of Dr. Sun Yat-sen. Then, in 1992, something strange happened. By then, in his 30s, Simu suddenly vanished. His family, frantic with worry, rallied the whole village to search for him. At last, he was found. A man named Wang spotted him in a nearby town. Simu was gaunt, with a large bruise darkening the side of his face. Wang rushed over and asked what had happened. Simu had gone begging for food at a stranger's house. The woman had taken pity and cooked for him. But just as he sat down to eat, her husband walked in. Seeing a strange man at his table eating food his wife had prepared, the husband flew into a jealous rage and punched Simu in the face. Wang urged Simu to go to the hospital, but he refused. Instead, with an unusual calm, he told Wang, "I won't live much longer." Then he grew serious. He said there were things he had never told anyone, secrets he had carried his entire life. And like a man writing his final testament, he began to put everything down in chalk and ink. He explained that the reason he had always known Dr. Sun Yat-sen's will from birth was simple. He was Sun Yat-sen reincarnated. He just kept writing. The laws of heaven are clear. Everything follows cause and effect. I suffer in this life because of debts from my past life. Do you know the greatest mistake Dr. Sun ever made? One shook his head. Simu wrote, "The greatest mistake of my previous life was the policy of allying with Russia and the communists. I thought that by borrowing the strength of the Russian Bolsheviks, I could build a republic. I didn't expect that I was letting the wolf into the house, destroying China, cutting off our bloodline. That was my fatal error. So this life of hardship is heaven's fair punishment. Then, with bold strokes of chalk, he scribbled a poem. You ask, brave Lord, of my past life cause. Across the vast land, storms rise and roar. China does not die, yet lies in a cold dream. 100 years sigh, guilty Sun Yat Sen. The meaning was unmistakable. Through all the upheavals of the last century, Sun Yat-sen himself bore no small share of the blame. To understand what Simu meant, we must go back in time. In 1917, Russia's February Revolution forced Tsar Nicholas II to abdicate. Later that same year, Lenin's Bolsheviks seized power in the October Revolution, creating the world's first communist state. From the very beginning, Soviet Russia's mission was not just to govern at home, but to export communist revolution worldwide. In China, the timing could not have been more perfect. In 1919, the May 4th movement erupted. Chinese nationalism surged, and the Soviets seized the moment. 2 months later, they issued their first declaration to China, a dazzling propaganda move. They promised to renounce all the unequal treaties Tsarist Russia had imposed on China. They vowed to return stolen Chinese land and property, abandon railway and mining rights, and even give up their share of the Boxer indemnity. It was a masterstroke. Chinese newspapers held it as an unprecedented act for the sake of humanity. Intellectuals across the country praised the Soviet communists without exception. Sun Yat-sen's Nationalist Party, increasingly desperate for allies, began to see Moscow as China's best friend. Meanwhile, in 1920, radical intellectuals like Chen Duxiu and Li Dazhao secretly met with Soviet agents, formally introducing communism into China. With Soviet funding, the Chinese Communist Party was born in July 1921. But Moscow didn't stop there. While bankrolling the CCP, the Soviets also sought to reshape Sun Yat-sen's Nationalist Party into a leftist organization that could work hand in hand with the communists. Even Chiang Kai-shek, who would later dedicate his life to fighting communism, once dreamed of studying in Russia. A year later, he even urged Sun Yat-sen to take the Soviet Union as our teacher. In 1922, the Congress of the Toilers of the Far East was held in Moscow. Both nationalists and communists were invited. Shortly after, the Soviets made their pitch. If the nationalists cooperated with the CCP, Moscow would provide military aid to build and arm a new Chinese army. It was an offer Sun Yat-sen could not resist, and that, Zhang Simu explained with chalk in hand, was the fatal choice, the decision that, in his view, condemned China to decades of communist rule. In 1924, the nationalists held their first National Congress. Communist leaders, even Mao Zedong, attended. Sun Yat-sen, now fully embracing Moscow, announced that his party would be reorganizing along the lines of the Russian Communist Party. The Congress formally set the three great policies: alliance with Russia, alliance with the communists, and support for workers and peasants. To be fair, the policy of allying with Russia and the communists wasn't solely Sun Yat-sen's burden to bear. It was the mood of the times. Sun had suffered setback after setback trying to build the republic. His movement had no secure base. The Soviets appeared as a good friend, a generous benefactor. It was hard not to be seduced. And back to our protagonist, Zhang Simu. After recounting his story, he wrote a final set of riddle-like lines. Water snake born, water snake dies. On the fingers, count one lunar cycle of 60 years. Though China suffers calamities, she will not die. She will meet spring again. After 4 generations, division and union are fate. The sin Sun Yat-sen brought upon China will at last be settled. Here's what the poem means. The communist regime would fall at the hands of someone born in the year of the water snake, 1953. The collapse would come due to internal struggles after that person had passed 60 years of age and after 4 generations of CCP leaders had ruled before him. Only then would the calamity unleashed by Sun's alliance with the communists finally run its course. This was Zhang Simu's last prophecy, and the important heavenly secret most closely tied to our time now. Think about it. The CCP's current leader, Xi Jinping, is the 5th leader in the party's history. There were 4 before him, and Xi Jinping himself was born in 1953, the year of the water snake. He turned 60 in June 2013, shortly after he ascended to power. By 2024, his power struggle with rivals had begun to intensify. According to the prophecy, Xi Jinping would be the last ruler of the communist regime. When Simu finished writing, one still didn't fully understand what he meant. He simply brought Simu home, but as soon as they arrived, Simu collapsed onto his bed, slipped into a coma, and within days he was gone. The people of Sijang village sighed. They had seen the miracles of his life with their own eyes. So when, before his death, he revealed he was the reincarnation of Sun Wen or Sun Yat-sen, many were willing to believe him. As for the prophetic poem he left behind, for years no one understood it, not until now. What about you? Do you believe it? I have another channel dedicated to analyzing Chinese politics, economy, and current affairs. The links are in the description. That's all for today's story. Thank you for watching and listening. If you find this topic interesting or want to follow more of our channel's stories, please subscribe and stay tuned. I'll see you next time.